You were supposed to just start the intro. What the hell's wrong with you?
Hello and welcome to the Game Brew Podcast, episode 17 on November 5th, 2017. I'm your host, Ian Richard, and I am so glad to be here this week with Chris Wrights.
Remember.
Dan Rotz.
The 5th of November.
And Will Shell.
The gunpowder
treason and plot. Fuck.
Oh, you ruined it. It's over.
Sorry.
In spite of the fact that we have poor knowledge of English history,
we got facts.
We have a great show for you today.
We do.
Where we will discuss dynamic leveling and we'll ask if the MMO genre is dying. But first, it's time for a beer.
Oh, God damn it. Oh,
Chris, what are we drinking this week?
We're drinking some more Magic Hat because it's been a little bit. I think we all should have some Circus Boy, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, we all should have some Circus Boy. We should have Circus Boy here in Southwest Virginia, Northeast Tennessee, but you know what we don't have for 150 miles?
Well, you fucked up, Ian.
Boy.
Circus Boy?
Actually, no. I'm drinking.
All right, Dan, Circus Boy.
Circus Boy.
Let's talk about Circus Boy, Dan.
Why, is no one else drinking Circus Boy
I
right
think this might be another episode of the Dan and Chris Show. I'm not sure.
Dan and Chris Show. This is the Dan and Chris Show.
Oh, let's read our caps, Dan. Mine says keeps friends close. Beer
Unless
closer.
they don't drink Magic Hat. Mine says, you're so rye.
All right. I hope we're at least all drinking Hefeweizens.
We are. I am actually drinking the West Coast version of Circus Boy. So I'm drinking Golden Road.
Does it have lemongrass in it?
Golden Road's Hefeweizen. So Golden Road is an LA local brewery. And does it have lemongrass?
Mm-hmm. Did I stutter?
I'm not picking up any lemongrass on the palate.
Well, Circus Boy's got some lemongrass in it. It gives it a nice little hint of lemon. It's really nice, actually, really refreshing.
It is. It's one of my I think my sister-in-law likes this one. She likes Hefeweizens a lot. So
I used to. I don't as much anymore.
I like smelling them. Remember I was talking about Legend? Hefeweizen's like my favorite. I just like the aroma. You get a lot of aroma.
You get a lot. It's almost like plantains or bananas or something.
Well, this one doesn't have that. This one's not very banana-y, which a lot of Hefeweizens are very banana flavored.
The Golden Road one, it kind of is. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah. Circus Boy, though.
But Circus Boy, it's very refreshing. It's a good summer beer for sure. Mm-hmm. And I haven't drank a lot of Hefeweizens recently, but this one's really good.
It's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of a weird. Like, the fall is not a Hefeweizen-y time of year to be drinking stuff. It's like, you want to do stouts, you want to do IPAs, you want to do lagers, things that are kind of warmer.
I save stouts for the dead of winter, I think.
Yeah? Okay.
When I'm trying to get warm, but not with a cold beer, Does that make sense?
Yeah, Hefeweizen's definitely summer, light. The lightness of them makes it like, I want to drink it outside. It feels a little bit less... intense whenever you're drinking it. Just like you could have a few of them and still not be.
It's almost refreshing. Almost refreshing.
It is refreshing.
I don't know about the one that you all are drinking, but this one's got a nice round mouthfeel. Not a lot of alcohol. Not a lot of harshness on the back end.
What do you mean by mouthfeel?
Round.
Explain your mouthfeel.
Can you explain how you can feel shapes in your mouth from liquids?
Everyone can feel shapes in their mouth.
But from liquids?
Well,
don't be weird, Ian.
Dan. No, but what I'm saying is that it's not harsh. There's no really hard alcohol finish on the end of it. It's very much flavors, like almost olives, something that's not quite bitter, but a little bit salty.
Ugh,
I think by their nature, Hefeweizens are going to be pretty mellow.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Beers.
Yeah.
Definitely not intense.
My beer tastes like somebody jammed a stick of butter down a bottle and just whipped it up real good.
What is that?
It's Best Damn cream soda, and I love cream soda, And this is not bad, but it's really buttery.
So you're drinking alcoholic cream soda.
Yes, and it doesn't taste like cream soda. It tastes like butter. Like somebody jammed a stick of butter down the thing and said, "Here you go. This is cream soda."
Paula-Deen's butter beer.
Wait, isn't that kind of like what butterbeer from the Harry Potter novels is supposed to be like? It's like a cream soda-y
I guess
thing.
So. And
Sounds
this is
like
it.
Does anyone know about this? I don't know about this.
I mean, I'm aware of butterbeer in those, but I've never drank
in
it
the
or made
lore.
it.
I'm aware of butterbeer in the lore, but I do not know its specific flavor profile. I haven't been to the wizarding
Universal
world in a while.
in Universal Studios. Oh, okay.
Let's talk about what we've been playing this week.
Okay.
It's been a fun week in my Game Brew household.
You've been really going hard on a game this week, haven't you? And it's not Destiny.
I've been spending a lot of time on Super Mario Odyssey on Nintendo Switch, which is really quite good, and also Golf Story on Nintendo Switch, which is also
I can't believe that's a game.
That sounds right up there with that farming game.
I know that Super Mario is a great game.
Yeah.
Tell me about Golf Story. I want to hear more about Golf Story.
I want to hear about this. I don't care about Mario because everyone knows about that.
So Golf Story is your quintessential golf RPG. Everyone knows how that works.
We want those.
I've never played a golf RPG, so you got to back it up a little more.
So what it is it's basically imagine Chrono Trigger or one of the earlier Final Fantasies,
like a JRPG.
Yeah, like a 2D JRPG, but I believe it's an American publisher, and instead of fantasy battles that are turn-based, you golf. So the rest of it is basically the same. You're sent on a quest by your father, kind of, to become a pro golfer, and you start off at this super dinky, awful golf place, and you're trying to get lessons from coach, and you slowly start to meet a cast of characters who have different golfing traits, and you go around to different what do you call golf? You go around to different golf courses that are like one's like the ancient golf course, and it's almost, it reminds me so much of Chrono Trigger when you go back in time.
Yeah,
and everyone's like playing on skulls and using bones for weapons. So it's basically that God. They're all wearing cheetah pelts, but you're golfing on their golf course. It's really fabulous. It's so much fun, and and the golfing is really entertaining. I don't know why I haven't gotten more into golfing games, but just the simple mechanics that it uses are really satisfying.
First off, do you play golf in real life?
No, I played golf in real life when I was a little kid. And
so this is like me, you're feeling the way I felt about NBA 2K17, like where you're like, I don't know why I like this, but I kind of like this a lot. And looking at the screenshots, it looks like a lot of fun.
It is super fun.
It looks really cool. I'm not going to lie.
It was a great time. I think part of it is, I think the biggest thing about it is that it's not at all self-serious. It wants to have a good time. It's really good at poking jokes, and it has, so none of it's voice acted. It's all text bubbles, and they do a really good job editing the text bubbles that you can tell where characters are putting emphasis or where they're being sarcastic. They like turn it sideways, and you can kind of tell that they're being sarcastic. So there's
like not your
they
best.
managed to stuff a lot of personality into these little chat bubbles, and that's one of the great parts of the game.
It's very interesting.
That sounds cool. It looks cool. It looks really cool.
It is super. It's great. If you have a Switch and you haven't bought this yet, go buy it and then thank me later.
How much is it on the Switch?
$15.
Like on their store?
On the Switch store, yeah.
Cool.
Nice.
Word.
Chris, what have you been up to, man?
I've been playing a lot of Destiny 2. So
Still going.
I mean, it's been a combination of playing with like you guys, and then I have some friends that I used to play a lot of World of Warcraft with, and so that's kind of been like a new renaissance for us because we haven't really dug into a game like that for a while. So it's been really Renaissance. That's how you pronounce that, isn't it, Ted Mosby? Yeah, but it's been a lot of fun kind of playing around with them and doing stuff that, and it takes me back a little bit. It's been a lot of fun though. I've got up to light level 268 as of right now. It'll probably be higher, hopefully be higher when we release the episode. But
so you're done with the main story. You've opened up all of the activities in the overworld, such as it is.
Yes.
Are you feeling like, are you getting Destiny 1 fever, where essentially you get ready to do the Nightfall and the raid and like it kind of feels like that's it? Or do you still feel good about living in the world and going on adventures in it and having quests to do?
I think it's a little better than it was in Destiny 1, but I'm a little concerned, and it's bad because I'm comparing it to WoW, but it just doesn't have the content that WoW does, but WoW did even at the time that I started. But there's a lot to do, but I feel like I've done a lot already too, if that makes sense.
Right, and that's what I have a friend named Caitlin. She's very into Destiny. Love the first one. Came out for the second one. She was super excited. Now she got it on console, so she's just right now she's a little bored because they haven't released a whole lot of extra content. So she's done all the raids, she's done all those things, and she's still just waiting for more stuff to come out before she keeps going.
And our mutual friend Bobby Brown is feeling the same way. He was real into Destiny 1.
Different Bobby
Destiny
Brown
1.
Audience.
No, there's only one Bobby Brown, and it's not the one that hurts feelings or people or anything like that. He can't do that because that's not him. But
he's too nice.
Bob has been really into Destiny, and like he was big into the first one, and he kind of said the same thing. Yeah, that he's a little bored with it. Kind of waiting for new content.
That happened with the first one too. After initially, everyone was a little kind of bored until the DLC came out, and the DLC was really good, so people got back into it. All that kind of stuff.
Yeah. They've had the opportunity on the PC, though, to kind of keep things moving. You know what I mean? Like, essentially now the PC release happened, but we're on the same content release schedule as all the console people. So, there's whatever the 4-player PvP competitive thing was released for us early.
Trials of the Nine.
And then there's something else that's starting next week that's also the same for consoles, but that's, for the PC.
Yeah, the Osiris DLC.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I feel like for the PC, they're actually making it a much better experience than for the consoles, which is kind of awesome for us.
Suck it, consoles.
Yeah, it feels really good playing it on mouse and keyboard for sure.
It does. It feels different.
It feels like it's made for it, to be honest.
Except everything for the menus, where it feels like it's made for.
Yes, but like the gunplay, it feels like it's.
The gunplay feels great. Good gracious, I wish they would fix some of the menus. I mean, we've probably put 60 hours combined into this, and I still have trouble inviting people to the fire team, or leaving a fire team, or changing the fire team leader. Like
I feel like that's a personal problem.
Maybe that's a personal thing, but it feels super wonky under my hands.
It's wonky on Xbox as well. It's not. It's not hard, but it's not clear.
It's not intuitive.
Yeah.
Jinx. Dan, what have you been up to, bud?
So I kept seeing things for the Evil Within 2, and I was in my head, I was just like, I really liked Evil Within. I'm gonna wait to get Evil Within 2 until it's less expensive. I didn't wait. I just bought it because
good for you.
I really wanted to play it. I played the first one. For those of you who haven't played the Evil Within, it's kind of like a almost Resident Evil like survival horror, psychological horror game. Yeah.
Well, I hope it's a game.
Is there shooting? Is it mostly melee?
It's a third-person shooter, puzzle solving, survival horror. So very similar to Resident Evil. It's really good. It's done kind of in the JRPG style. So the character models and the environments are and the enemies, there's a bunch of scary enemies. And
they all have hair down at least to their nose.
Yeah, the hair is lower. It's very eerie. It's very scary. Chris has been on Skype or on Discord with me a few times whenever I'm playing it. I'm just I like to talk whenever I'm scared. So whenever I'm playing scary games, it's great because I just kind of sit there and just go, okay, what's that thing doing there? That's not supposed to be there. Okay, it's crawling towards me. I'm going to go the other direction. I'm just going to run away now. This is about a place to be.
Dan, is it... Tell me about the things that are scary in that game. Is it a zombie kind of thing,
like
or is it like a demons kind of thing, or is it?
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's.
Do they set a mood, and that's kind of like it's just that dread?
Yeah, like
Alan
Wake, or is it
jump scares,
kind of?
or is it?
No, it's not like Alan Wake. It's more like there's zombie-ish kind of possessed people. There's also monster type things. There's serial killers.
So how is it different from Resident Evil 4? Because that sounds like basically the setup for Resident Evil 4.
Well, it's very similar. I mean, there's not too much you can do. It's the horror genre. You can't really break away from existing tropes easily. But I don't want to give away a whole lot of stuff.
Okay,
I hate doing that.
That's fine.
But a lot of the things, it's very psychological. It has to do with the main character and his mental state, his background, and where he comes from. So it's not so much like, ooh, zombies. It's like kind of figments of your
Is this
psyche.
really happening, or is it all in my head?
Yes. If you haven't played the first,
scary.
If you haven't played the first one, that's pretty much the plot of the first one, is that altered state of reality and how terrifying that can be.
That makes sense because it's called the Evil Within.
Yeah. I also really I really love the idea of having an untrustworthy protagonist in a video game, because this is a thing that books do, and sometimes to great effect, where they create a character and you see everything through their eyes, and then at some point you realize that this person is not trustworthy and everything that you knew could be wrong. And the horror genre in video games is another great place for that to happen. So I'm glad to hear that that's a thing.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, it's good. You should totally. I haven't played enough of it to say whether you should pick it up or not. I'm not going to recommend it unless you've played the first one. And if you like the first one, you'll like the second one.
Got it. Well, what have you been up to, man?
A lot of research the past week. I really, really, really want a Switch, but I don't have a good reason other than just like
Golf Story.
The local stores have them now, and I keep seeing them, and I just like I want it because I want to have one, but I don't really need one or have a desire to really play anything on them except for the new Mario, I guess. So I've done a lot of research on that. I mean,
I think that you would really like the new Zelda. It's not I don't want to say it's
Skyrim.
Dissimilar than the other Zeldas, yeah, but it's more like Skyrim.
It's more like Skyrim than Zelda Ocarina of Time, for sure.
I would probably like it then.
Will, didn't you say on like episode 2 that you were getting a Switch also?
Yeah, and then I decided to be financially responsible.
Whoa! Is that a shot across the bow here? Should I be upset?
No, I'm just saying.
You're frivolous with your money. That's what he's saying. Come on.
Yeah.
I'm trying to just save some.
Me and these 5,000 teddy bears are gonna have a great cuddle session when we're done with the episode.
You and that $150 you spent on Hearthstone booster packs.
I do believe it was 2 to 250 was the final total.
Still a thing. They released so BlizzCon was this past week, and they announced the new Hearthstone expansion.
There was so many good things out of BlizzCon. The new WoW expansion. StarCraft's
Vanilla
going
WoW
free to
servers.
Vanilla WoW servers, yeah. There's a new
Hearthstone
character
expansion, new character in Overwatch. Oh my god, there was a big BlizzCon.
There was a lot. It was
a lot of stuff.
Considering that there was no new games.
It was pretty huge. Also,
it's a lot of stuff. A lot of expansions.
I was watching the France versus China game where France had that like stupid overtime comeback.
Which game?
Overwatch.
Will, they're talking about esports right now. Will's ignoring me.
No, I hear you. You're
he's just completely nonplussed by esports.
Overwatch.
Me and Will were both sitting here. I was like,
and it was
talking about stuff now.
Some people say that
what's going on with you, Will?
Dan, god damn it. Some people say, like Dan, and maybe Will, say that watching esports is not exciting, but I'm telling you,
I love esports.
Watching these super high level players play Overwatch, there were several times where I'd be like, oh, I could do that. Oh yeah, I could do that. And then my jaw just hits the floor because someone, pulls off a series of crazy headshots or is Tera and is like leading people perfectly, and then without even looking down, she's low on health, without even looking down, just turns off her jump jets, lands on a full pack of health, and then boosts straight back up in the air like it was perfectly planned. Just some of the stuff that people are able to do with that game is really incredible, and I am so excited for when Overwatch League starts next year.
Yeah, that sounds really awesome.
I'm gonna go to a match.
You should bring a computer so I can Skype and watch.
I'm pretty sure
I probably could just watch it on a
just
broadcast.
Live stream it on your computer.
Yeah. But it'd be cooler if you could just sit a computer next to you in a seat. I think I would like that better.
Would that be cooler? I feel like that wouldn't be very good video or audio.
But I would be there.
No, you wouldn't.
Shut up, Dan.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to our first topic before Dan and Chris tear each other apart. The Dan and Chris show, man. There's a rift. There's a rift in the Dan and Chris show.
You don't know about the. Don't talk about the Dan and Chris show.
Don't talk about the Dan and Chris show. You do not know what it's like.
Okay.
First rule of
don't try
the Dan and Chris
first rule of Dan and Chris show. Don't insert yourself into the Dan and Chris show.
Topic number 1 is on dynamic leveling. So this is a strategy that developers use to make sure that the difficulty level of the game is always being scaled to the level of the player's avatar. So theoretically, it means that they're always providing you with a challenge no matter what area in the game you're going at or what kind of enemies you're facing. And personally, I have really mixed feelings about dynamic leveling because it can make a game kind of seem very vanilla where you don't get that power trip feeling that you kind of want from a video game if it's not done right. But also, it can make it so that a person who spent 100 hours in a game and a person who spent 8 hours in a game can still group up together and have a great time. So let's talk about some games that use dynamic leveling and if it went well or if it didn't. Dan?
I just want to say a few things about it because I did some research for the topic there because there's a whole bunch of different types of dynamic leveling. The broad category is dynamic difficulty scaling, which varies from what Ian is talking about is dynamic leveling, which is that as you get higher in level, the enemies that you face in the game get higher in level too, which in RPGs and games where you do gain levels makes a lot of sense. But there's also a whole bunch that you can think of too, like probably didn't think of Mario Kart being a game that uses dynamic difficulty scaling. But remember how whenever you're in last
when you
place,
turn into the bullet and just
and you're immediately in first because you were just in last, and so you got a boost because you were in last place. Mario Kart also does the thing called rubber banding that's popular in race games, which is where it like kind of groups everyone together. If you're in last, you can kind of catch up a little bit easier. If you're in first, it's harder for you to pull away, which is kind of interesting. Those are a little bit different. And there's also like,
can I just say that I'm sorry. That drives me fucking bonkers in Mario Kart. I cannot it's not that I stopped playing Mario Kart because it had that effect on me, but it is super annoying when you're, going along in first place, having, taken care of all the stuff and raced really well, and then you get blue shell and red shell and giant bomb, and then followed by a bullet, and then suddenly everyone is in front of you.
It's just like now you're in last, but then you get to become the bullet, and then you go to the front.
No, it never works that way.
No, it never works that way.
It's supposed to be frustrating. It's supposed to make it more dynamic and exciting.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that came out with racing games, and that was a little frustrating for people, but also it makes it more exciting as a game. And a lot of the dynamic leveling things are just that. It's to make it more exciting. Just like Left 4 Dead, that's another one. I was doing research. This is all from an article that I was reading called Dynamic Difficulty Balancing for Cautious Players and Risk Takers. It's from 2012. It's a little bit old. But
2012 does not feel old. Damn.
That's
5 years, 5 years ago.
I know, but it doesn't sound old to me.
Yeah, it was published in the International Journal of Computer Games Technology. And
sounds official.
It is. It is. It's by a bunch of different people. will not pronounce their names.
Probably people smarter than us.
Yeah, but they were talking about, there's also something in Left 4 Dead, which is kind of interesting, where how well you're doing, which is like the zombie horde shooter, you remember that one?
This is Left 4 Dead?
Yes, I'm aware that Left 4 Dead is. Yes.
That tiny indie title that no one's ever heard of, yeah.
Well, but it used an interesting thing where, depending on how you were doing, like it would spawn certain amounts of enemies in areas, depending on like how like many enemies you've killed and how well you were doing in the game, which is very interesting. It's a very like brute force numbers kind of way of looking at it. Like, oh, you're doing well. Here's more numbers,
Yeah.
This is a thing that bugs me because just like the Mario Kart thing, it makes me feel like there's no objectivity in your accomplishment, right? So no matter how well you do at murdering zombies in Left 4 Dead, they're always going to throw more at you to make it harder because it scales the difficulty. You could never get to a point where you were so good that you would, destroy all the zombies and then be happy.
But then it wouldn't be an exciting game.
No. I understand that. What I'm saying is, like, for me, part of playing a game, what makes playing a game satisfying is mastering it. And dynamic difficulty scaling makes me feel like I'm never mastering it sometimes.
I would agree. I don't really like the concept, at least at face value. Maybe you can change my mind on that, but I think back to my childhood and RPGs especially. It was so rewarding to work up to a point and to go through the grind and level, to just be able to go into an area and just whap the shit out of anything in your way and just crush you felt so powerful and so accomplished. And I feel like we don't have that as much anymore. And I miss that feeling. It feels good to reap the benefits of your hard work.
Well, one of the things, Chris, you talked about this in the last microbrew that we did, is that risk versus reward type feeling. Like it's a big thing in gambling. Again, I'm citing that article that I was reading before. It was really good. You should check it out because in it they talk about that's kind of what a lot of gamers experience, which is what Chris and Will don't look for in the thing, because a lot of gamers will look for something that is challenging, that is consistently challenging. And it's not so much like I powered up and then I can beat this thing. It's more so I want a game that I can play consistently and will always be consistently a challenge for me. Kind of like a new crossword puzzle every day.
Yeah, so it makes a lot of sense for games that are looking to have a really long play cycle. For a game that a publisher or a developer is hoping that you stick with for a couple 100 hours, to have dynamic scaling because it allows them to keep the challenge going. And I think that makes sense. When it really comes to bother me is games like, I feel like Oblivion had the worst dynamic level scaling ever, because I would start off at level 1 and kill a scamp, and that would be killing a scamp, and then 19 levels later the scamp would still be the same difficulty to kill, but I'm supposedly wearing all this really cool gear.
I think this has the best place in multiplayer games. Like, it makes a ton of sense there, and because it's so hard to get with your friends and play the same things at the same pace. Like, WoW was a good example of this for all of us. Like, we could never stay on level pacing wise, and something like dynamic leveling is super useful for trying to play games with your friends and all of you still playing at your own pace that fits your lifestyle and your playing capabilities. But for games that are just kind of story driven, like Skyrim or anything that you're going to sit down and play on your own, I don't think it makes a damn bit of sense.
So I disagree with you, Ian, talking about Oblivion. I thought they did it really well. I don't know if they did it really well, but I think that they did it better than you think they did. I think that the leveling system was different in that game and was difficult to wrangle in sometimes. And that could have been more of a usability issue, more so than an issue with the dynamic leveling. Because it was very easy. It was very easy to mess up your character in that game, to the point that if you like the way that the leveling worked in that game, you would level up certain skills and you had major and minor skills. And if you leveled up a certain amount of your major skills, then you would level up. And so then the creatures would become stronger. But if you leveled up other skills, then so like you could kind of game the way you leveled up.
Oh, I see. So if you only leveled up minor skills, you would become more powerful, but you would never level up, and therefore you would be more powerful compared to the enemies.
Right. So it was an evolution into the way they did Skyrim, I guess. But like, I think it was more about just the way the game was and less about the dynamic leveling in that game.
See, for the same reason that you think it was a success, where like you could game it to make sure that you were always ahead of the curve, it seemed like a failure to me because the way that I wanted to play was the way that I played. And the playing that way, I remember in Oblivion, I was trying to be like an archer who also healed. And for some reason, this was like the worst combination of major skills to
right. You should have waited to be into Skyrim to be stealth archer. That's everyone becomes a stealth archer in Skyrim.
So by the time I got to the 4th or 5th big main quest in Oblivion, I literally couldn't finish the quest because the enemies were too hard and I had chosen the wrong stuff for my character. In a game like in an Elder Scrolls game where it's supposed to be open world, choose your own adventure kind of stuff, it bugs me that the way I wanted to do it didn't work. Oh, because you chose the wrong skills.
But there's a game that's like that when you choose your own skills and you just kind of have to deal with that this is a game that you enjoy and you just have to figure out another way to do that. And that's Dark Souls.
I want to get Dan in here, but I want to rebut that first because Dark Souls choosing to heal and be an archer could actually be a viable choice. Because
that would be a very difficult choice.
It could be. You're right. But the enemies, if you get really good at healing or really good at being an archer, the enemies aren't going to get any better at being the enemies. The enemies are just the enemies. That's Dark Souls.
Sure. But you can always adjust your strategy in Oblivion. You can level up, like you can work on other things to make yourself better, to make it so you can adjust that.
You could, but those skills that you've leveled up to that point have already been counted against you, right? Because they're subpar on the curve. So you're always going to be less powerful because you made a choice to do a thing your own way.
Yeah. I disagree.
Noted. Dan.
There we go. I was going to say, I don't think either of you is going to change your mind about this point. But that's okay. You're not trying to convince each other that you're wrong. Just be solid in the fact that both of you are stupid.
Be salad?
I will be salad. I will be salad, Dan.
You be salad.
Not spinach?
No, but Ian, you were talking about, whenever you were talking about that Oblivion thing, you were saying that at one point it made it like impossible for you to continue going. I have a fun story about something like that.
Yeah.
You've all played Final Fantasy VII, right?
Yes.
Briefly, yes.
Okay, so the first time I played Final Fantasy VII, I was a child, and I didn't understand what grinding was, or that you had to do it in order to like get better at games in RPGs. And of course, this is a game that does not have dynamic leveling in air quotes. Instead, it has the classic RPG style of leveling, which is there's a certain enemy type here. They are this level to this level, so you should be this level to defeat them.
Like zone or area leveling.
Exactly. Yes. And thank you, Will. So You're smart. Welcome. So handsome. The problem is that I didn't understand that was a thing. So there were 3 discs in that, if I'm not mistaken, right?
There were 3
How many discs was Final Fantasy?
Yes.
3 or 4.
3 or 4. Okay. So I had been playing through the story and not really doing anything that's like a side quest, or I had missed a bunch of characters. Like I didn't have what's her face? The Shuriken girl.
Yuffie Kisarage.
I didn't have Yuffie, and I didn't have Vincent because I didn't know those were side quests. I just kind of blew right past them. And I got to the last disc where you're in the crater.
Yeah.
And I couldn't defeat any enemies. So I had to stop playing and start over again because I didn't have any old save points.
You couldn't. Oh shit! You were like that point in the game where they're like, okay, if you go to the crater, there's no coming back, and you're like, yeah, okay, cool. And then you got there and you couldn't win.
Yeah, sure. I've killed everything else up to here, so I think I should be fine. Went to the crater. And I had to start the whole game over again because I didn't have any save points. I was really upset. I did not play for a very long time after that.
It's very sad. It's a very sad story.
But yeah, that zone leveling stuff, man. If you don't know how that works and you are just trying to go through it, it does not get you the right way.
I prefer the zone leveling. It gives you the opportunity to like go back and try different things on easier enemies or just go through the grind and build up yourself, however you need to, or farm certain things.
You do. Would you say that you are a big fan of Final Fantasy games?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool. And that is very much like zone leveling kind of systems.
I have mixed feelings about it. I think that in certain situations, dynamic leveling or dynamic difficulty scaling can be really useful. So like in Destiny 2, it's been really great, like playing with people that have started the game at different times. And I've been at level 20 and working on my light level stuff. I can still hang out with people that aren't as far as me and still get benefit from that. And I think that's really cool. Like it makes it so I'm not just like, okay, let me kill everything for you. It makes it so the game is interesting and I still get a benefit from helping them.
Whereas in Diablo 3, you'd have to, let me run you through all this content for 3 hours and then we can actually get stuff done together.
Right. And then there's other games that I'm like, it's super empowering and really fulfilling to fight an enemy and just get destroyed by it the first time you see it. And then go back to it. And I Will said this earlier, like going back to it and just smearing it. Like in New Vegas, like if you go the wrong direction and you find a bunch of
Deathstalkers.
Yeah. Like you find a bunch of them and they just destroy it and you're like, oh, well, I'm not going that way anymore. Or like finding an enemy in The Witcher 3 that you like you're riding on a horse and there's like this really bad enemy in the forest and you're just like, oh, well, I'm not going to fight that because that's going to destroy me. And then you come back later and you can kill it. Like it's really fulfilling. So I think there's a space for both of them.
I think there's a space for both. I also think there's a space for well-tuned dynamic scaling where there are points in the evolution of your character where you do feel very powerful and then it sort of scales you back and like, oh no, you got to work again. And then it gives you another opportunity to feel really powerful and it scales you back again. I think developers have kind of caught on to that and that's become more of a thing than just the blanket. You're level 4, all enemies are level 4 and that's just the way it is.
Sure. But like, I feel like that's a really difficult thing to wrangle in,
Yeah. I think it's just a lot of math. I think you got to map that out.
It literally is. There's algorithms, yeah.
I like to constantly feel challenged, but I do like... Destiny 2 is dynamic leveling, is it not?
It is.
Yeah. Destiny 1 was kind of dynamic leveling.
Like the way that they do that, and Ian, I think this is kind of what you were talking about. You can go back and fight certain enemies and wreck house with them and feel really powerful and successful, even though that they're kind of scaled up to your level. And I always want to challenge, but I always want to be able to try out new things without stressing out of, am I going to die? Am I going to get my ass kicked? And I like to feel powerful. I want to feel like I've been built into this big badass who can wreck some face.
Yeah, and that's part of that. The interesting thing about dynamic leveling and this discussion that we're having is because it's basically we want to play things that puts us in that nice little area of it not being too easy for us to be bored with it, and it's not too hard so that we get frustrated by it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Well, I feel like in Destiny 2, it's been either super easy or super hard. There's been very little in between for me in that game.
I disagree. I haven't had that feeling at all.
Really?
Yeah, there's never been anything where I've been like, this is entirely too difficult for me. And even the stuff that was easy, in the beginning, it was just kind of getting my feet wet again. But as I kept going, it's just kind of been in that nice middle area where it was just challenging, but not too difficult. Do you guys remember whenever you could set your own levels for games? I can't remember the last game I played that had
where you could set your own difficulty level?
Like say it's easy, medium, hard.
All that comes to mind immediately is the level descriptions from Doom and from the other 3D software early shooters where it's like, don't hurt me, and then like, what are the rest of them?
It's like
hurt me plenty or something
hurt me
like
plenty,
that.
And there was always something really extreme.
I really like the games where if you died a bunch, it would be like, hey, looks like you're dying a lot. Do you want to drop it a difficulty level?
That is the worst. That is the...
It's a slap in the face.
I'd be like, no, I'm fine.
Fuck you, game.
Just eating pizza. It's not my fault.
My fingers are greasy.
For sure. So,
you're wrong. Shut up.
So aside from Destiny 2, what other games do you think of when you think of successful dynamic scaling?
I thought that Guild Wars 2 was pretty unique not unique, but like they did a decent job with it, I think.
I had fun with it.
They did.
That was a good system.
They did a thing where you were always challenged because whatever level you were, they scaled you down to the level of that zone.
Yeah. I like that.
So it was that you wouldn't go to zones that were beyond your level. You know, there was a cap, but there was once you were that level, you could kind of go anywhere within that and still have a challenge.
Right, and that made it so you explored everywhere.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Dungeons and Dragons, I put in the script, if you could see that. That was kind of one of the first things to do it.
Of course, it's man, what a great example!
It's kind of up to your DM, your dungeon master,
right?
For those of you who don't play, but because it's very much like all the enemies are leveled, but it's a very basic sort of leveling system because later they can get classes like the enemies can, or they have more hit points, and that's just kind of.
But I also feel like D&D has some built-in levels where you start to feel really powerful. Like I feel like at level 5, it's like every 5 levels you get some awesome stuff. And
it wouldn't even be. I mean, it's usually like your first when you start out, you really don't have much. Like it's kind of lame.
Yeah, and then get to like
once you get to level 3.
Yeah, there's like a bump there.
Or third level, then you have you can pick a class. Once you get to level, I think it's 11. I need to look over my stuff again. You can, 15.
10.
You can multi-class at some point, which is you can like pick multiple different classes for your character. And that's kind of where that stuff comes from. But again, that's just math because Dungeons and Dragons is math and probability.
Yeah. Interesting stuff.
Is it?
All right, Game Brew listeners. How do you feel about dynamic leveling? What games really hit the sweet spot between challenge and satisfying? Let us know by sending us an email at thegamebrew@gmail.com or by hitting us up on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at The Game Brew. When we come back, we will check in with our beers and we will also talk about MMOs. Stick with us. Hello and welcome back to the second half of the Game Brew podcast. Time to check in with our beers. We're drinking Circus Boy on the East Coast and the Golden Road Hefe on the West Coast. How's Circus Boy? Is he still jolly and jingly?
Oh, it is. It's very sweet. Like it's almost like a candy. And it's not like it's not sweet though. It's
not sweet. It's kind of like lemon heads. You know how those are sweet, but they're also sour.
But then it's not either of those things.
Either.
It's like, but it's very refreshing for sure.
What are you?
What are this?
Ooh, my second cap says, "Life stinks with no jinx."
I don't get it.
Mine says, "Just beyond the whale's tail awaits for you exquisite ales." How are your guys' beers?
Good. Yeah, Golden Road. Hefeweizen makes me happy. Super drinkable.
That doesn't have anything to do with the dead, does it?
No. Did you ask me this question already?
Not on the podcast.
What is there something with the Grateful Dead that has to do with the Golden Road?
Well, they have a song called "The Golden Road."
Oh, okay.
And I thought, thinking West Coast, I thought maybe they might.
I think
have a connection.
I think it's more in kind of about like sun and roads, you know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I have no idea. It could be something completely different. I don't know who made. Maybe they're huge deadheads. I have absolutely no idea.
I mean, I wouldn't be shocked.
I wouldn't be shocked either because, California. But anyway,
we digress.
Speaking of whales and other massive things, topic 2 this week is about... Wait. Oh, what?
I didn't hear about Will's cream ale, how that was doing.
Oh, is his creamy...
Shit's creamy, yo.
Alcoholic soda.
You mean my butter? My butter
Your
water?
Butter?
Your Paula-Deen.
Alcoholic butter.
Paula-Deen butter.
My butter water was good. It's making me tired, which is kind of surprising because there's that thing has got to be packed with an exorbitant amount of sugar. And I had 2.
Maybe you're crashing.
So maybe I'm just having a sugar crash. But I mean, it was good. I don't think I'll ever drink it again. It's
good. I'm never doing it again.
I'm never going to drink this again.
It's good, again. But it's not like it literally, put a stick of butter on a stick and chew on it, and that's what this tastes like.
That does not sound appealing at all.
If you take a stick of butter, you put it on a stick, and then you roll it in sugar, that's called a shame stick.
I just had a shame beer.
You know what else was too sweet?
WoW in its heyday.
That's what I was going to say. The time that I spent in WoW, it was too sweet.
The times in Wrath of the Lich King.
So
I know a lot of people have different opinions about that, but Wrath of the Lich King was my favorite.
We'll get there, Chris. We'll get there.
Okay,
so the question for the second half of the show is, are MMOs a dying genre? So MMO, massively multiplayer, online games. Is it a dying genre? Are people going to other kind of games more often? Or is it just that the player base is more spread out these days? So we could talk about it. The thing about this is I spent a lot of time this week trying to find out what subscription numbers were like.
You can't find out anymore.
There are no numbers out there.
Really?
Really. So the best thing that I found was this Reddit page, because Reddit, of course.
Of course.
It was this Reddit page called Reddit MMO Data. And what it does is it tracks the number of comments about or comments on the Reddit pages for different MMOs. And thereby you can get an idea, at least relatively, of the popularity of the MMOs. So
at least interest, yeah.
Yeah. So World of Warcraft, definitely on top, more than twice, almost 3 times as many comments as the Guild Wars Reddit. And then under that, we have old school RuneScape, Final Fantasy 14, Elder Scrolls Online, Star Citizen, older RuneScape, EVE Online,
RuneScape will never die,
SWTOR, Black Desert Online, etc., so on and so forth. What I thought was really interesting is that Wildstar and Tera, which were huge MMOs in their own moments, are they're fairly far down the list. So Wildstar's at number 12 and Tera is at number 14.
I think those games were too little too late.
Yeah.
Well, I think they jumped on the WoW train, and I think they were too late to that party. Yeah, I think that's
the train had already left the station.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's hard. That genre, that MMORPG WoW genre is so saturated now. Like with these free-to-play
the market
WoW
is saturated.
Clones. Yeah. Like it's just there's so many of them that it's like even if you come out with one that's remotely interesting or has its own unique thing, it's still very similar to how WoW worked. Either it's with like the UI or if it's with
WoW with lightsabers.
Yeah, like KOTOR. Yeah, exactly.
I think the genre is evolving / dying, depending on how you want to interpret what I'm about to say here. Because we still have massively multiplayer online games, but they're kind of hybridized with, whatever, insert game genre here, like first-person shooters mixed with MMO. I mean, Destiny 2, we've been talking about that, but it gets watered down. You don't see all those people at one time. They've got their server algorithm stuff going on in the background to
instant stuff.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know that you want to still call that an MMO because you don't see and interact with absolutely everyone who's there at a time, but it has the same basic foundation.
Well, and isn't that the definition of it though? It's a massively multiplayer online game. Like that's what an MMO is.
I think you need to be able to interact with all those people, though.
You can.
Well, but that you can. It's still the same thing. In WoW, you couldn't either because everyone's still on different servers. Like you're not interacting with every person on WoW at once. You're still in a specific server with that group of people, or you're in another server with a different group of people. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but Will is right in that with the evolution of instances, and not only instances, but also the sharding of servers, where there's no longer giant servers. Instead, you have a bunch of smaller servers that link up and then unlink and then link up and then unlink. It makes it feel like less of a shared world with a very large population, because you're only seeing a certain population of players on there at the same time, and that's controlled to a very specific level. Whereas back in the day in WoW, you know, you wander into Orgrimmar and your computer just like you get 3 frames a second because there's 8 billion people sitting at the auction house.
But that doesn't change the fact that you still have the ability to contact those people. It's still more than 4 people, which to me
more than 4 is
like
massive. More than 4 for Dan is massive.
It's not about the people though. It's about the space that you're interacting in. Like in Destiny 2, you can interact with anyone that's playing Destiny 2. And that's
but we've also had games like Counter-Strike for, a decade and a half, and you can interact with anyone there if you join the same server. So what makes an MMO an MMO as compared to just any online game where you can meet up with anybody who happens to be on the internet?
It's a persistent world.
I disagree with that too. I'm so sorry. I don't think that's what makes it, because an MMO, it literally is it big? Like, does it have a global or large player base? And is it multiplayer? Are there multiple people involved in anything you're doing? And is it online? Can you interact with people online? And yes, that's the technical specific definition of a massively multiplayer online game. Now that's why they are all like broken up now into different things. What you guys are talking about is MMORPGs, which is a class of MMO, but there's like 7 other ones that you have to think about.
Yeah, I think we need to be careful, because if we go with just the qualifications only being, are there a ton of people who are playing this game and are they playing it online? Things like Call of Duty could be considered massively multiplayer online games, because theoretically they are. It's just a bunch of people playing in smaller servers. But it's not open world.
But
exactly.
It's not an open world type of thing.
Sure. So what about Ghost Recon Wildlands then? It's an open world. You could go wander around in the open world, but not a bunch of players are in it. So I think there is sort of like a meeting place of
Divisions, or The Division. I would say that's an MMO.
Right. Because because there are a lot of players existing at the same time in that open world. So sure. I think Dan has a point. What I'm saying is that there's a point where like MMO and genre kind of meet and then go away, because Dan's pointing out that MMO is not necessarily a genre. It's kind of a way of designing a game where we invite a bunch of players into it, and then you can hook different genres up to that. So Destiny 2 is kind of like an MMO FPS. Right?
Yeah, that is what it is.
There's like kind of like MMORPGs.
It's an MMO.
There
it's an MMO
other things. But being an MMO also brings certain qualifications to that genre as well. So in terms of MMOs, though, are they dying out? Are we seeing less players playing MMOs?
I think the traditional definition,
I think they're evolving.
When we say MMO, we tend to latch onto this idea of MMORPG because that's where it was originally attributed to. So I think it's just kind of changing. Those are kind of dying out, and we still have MMOs, but MMO first-person shooters are a much, much bigger thing now.
Yeah, very much what Will says. It's not dying. It's like, to analogize it, it's kind of like whenever something dies and then, or like a butterfly, it's like a butterfly. So it's like this caterpillar that has made a cocoon and is now something different. Like MMORPGs started as something good. Caterpillars are good. You ever had one? They're delicious. But now they're just changing into this something that's completely different, where it could be, like Will was saying, it could be something that's a first-person shooter. It could be a real-time strategy. It could be those battle arena, like a MOBA, like that. I would classify as a type of MMO. I know.
I don't know.
In the broad sense, that's why there's classification. There's so many different things that you could say is an MMO.
That I just want to say that I don't think battle arenas, MOBAs, are MMOs.
Why not?
Because there's not a persistent world for them to interact with. And more than, 8 people never exist at the same time in that interactive world.
Okay.
I think, as we talked about earlier, something that is required of an MMO is that there is a large space, world, whatever you want to call it, where many people exist at the same time.
Did you ever play any of the MMOSGs, like the massively multiplayer online social games?
Oh, like Penguin Club or Second Life or no, not seriously.
I tried Second Life for a little bit. It's very interesting.
I feel like
not my
there's
thing,
like a wish fulfillment thing that Second Life kind of does, like you could be anybody you want. You could own a building. You could build a plane.
That's so cool, though.
And it's called Second Life. So the kind of the thrust of that idea is that it's not a game. It's an existence, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm. There was this, when I was doing research for this, I found something called a CORPG, a cooperative online role-playing game, kind of like Diablo. Which is what you would classify that as.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Which is very interesting, I thought. I just wanted to bring that up because I thought it was really interesting. There's a whole bunch of different, that's why I started doing research and then I just got at all the classifications. My mind was blown. I've been changed. I had this different, I've been changed, you guys. I'm also looking at Chris trying to remember what he was going to say, and it's my favorite thing in the world.
Well, so I'll jump in. I think the other interesting thing about MMOs, like we're talking about how they evolved to be more shard-like, where it's maybe less players in any given instance, but more instances. I think that's exactly what's happened to the genre, where everybody's kind of found their own niche within the massively multiplayer online genre, but each of those niches is less of a giant than WoW was. WoW dominated that space. We're talking 10 million subscribers at the top of its dominance, which is incredible. And if you think about the amount of money that generated for Blizzard, what that did was all that money means that Blizzard is basically free to generate as much awesome content as they want. And that created this expectation that all MMOs are constantly going to be having these epic content drops. And when that doesn't happen in other MMOs, people get upset.
Yeah, you're not wrong. They did an outstanding job with that.
So I think that's why, that's part of the reason why the MMO genre seems like it's at least taken a turn, if not died out, is because people have this really high expectation of, we were just talking about Destiny 2, where we're like, okay, yeah, but once we've played it for, 20 hours, where's the rest of the content? Where when Dan gets to the end of Evil Within 2 after 24 hours, let's hope, who even knows? It's probably not even, it's probably 15 hours. He's going to be like, you know what?
Dude, they added side quests. I'm like, okay, I'm going nuts now. It's awesome.
Maybe it will be. But point is, a lot of single player games like that, you get 12, 15 hours of content and then they're out. And you're still like, that was fine. So it doesn't make fiscal sense for a developer to create a game that's going to get bad reviews because it doesn't have quote unquote enough content. And so that's why we have subscriptions and we have free to play models.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the big difference now is that there was an entire generation that their communication with other people was through these MMOs. And there's so many different ways to do that now. Like different games and like you can do it through a MOBA, you can do it through FPS shooters. But before that, like if you were playing an online game, you couldn't really have an intimate connection unless you were playing an MMO because you spent so much time playing that game.
Interesting.
And raiding with those players. You know what I mean? Like, and you can get that experience like doing a MOBA now that you don't have to invest all that time. I think that's another thing is that the investment of time that you have to have in an MMO
Okay.
Like, I can't spend the time that I spent playing WoW now because I have a job. I'm not in college anymore. And
you spent a lot of time.
I just can't skip my job. Like, sorry, Mr. Shees.
I hope he doesn't listen to this one. Cut that part out. Oh God, cut it out.
But like, I can't do that anymore. And like, so I wonder if that's also a generational disconnect as well.
Oh, well, but there are a lot of people who do spend a lot of time on that who aren't like teenage or college age level people. Like, there are a lot of people who are adults who still spend a lot of time in WoW or in those massively multiplayer online games.
Sure, and so there are also players that played Destiny for the first time, and they talked about raiding with their friends. And they had never played a raid before in WoW, and so it was weird for me to hear them talk about things like that because I'd played WoW and they didn't play WoW, and then they're playing Destiny.
Listen here,
they're talking
son.
about raids.
When I raided,
not even about that. It was just I thought it was really cool just to hear them talk about, oh, we did this raid, and I was like, oh, that's how I felt about WoW. Like, that's cool.
Yeah.
We talk about the evolution of the genre and expanding into different subgenres, if you will, and a lot of those elements are still, I mean, would a first-person shooter have ever had anything like an instance or a raid ever if it weren't for MMORPGs starting and WoW? And the answer is probably no.
Probably not.
Would we have a matchmaking system if it weren't for MMORPGs? Maybe, arguable, but that got the ball rolling, and that genre has expanded out and kind of influenced and tree branched its way into damn near everything.
What was interesting was after the peak of WoW, how WoW started actually pulling in other genres. So you talked about matchmaking.
They brought in Pokemon.
So you talked about matchmaking, but matchmaking actually was really more a thing for first-person shooters. If you think about like what Call of Duty was doing, they were like, you know what, we could do that for Raid Finder, and they sort of took that piece, and then they brought in Pokemon, and then they brought in like town builders, and then they're like, all right, what else can we do because we think we've done everything.
Farmville, yeah.
So it was interesting.
Let's release a MOBA. That's what we're going to do.
Dude, like,
it's a good MOBA,
WoW
though.
PvP might as well be.
Well, HOTS, though, is
okay, HOTS. But that's interesting.
Heroes of the Storm.
Yeah, so I think as if we could sum up what we talked about as the game brew, I think we're saying that MMO is an undying genre. It's an evolving genre that yes, we might not have recognized it if we were talking about it back in 2004, 2005, but it's still alive and well. It's just different.
It's a lot different than your cookie cutter WoW copy, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Do you think that we'll see another WoW?
No, not
there is only one WoW.
There can be only one.
There is never name a game that's ever touched WoW.
It's kind of like the New York Yankees of
it is
of MMOs because it's been there. It has
forever.
Like people keep saying like New Year's Yankees. Oh yeah, we have the most wins. It's like you've got so many wins. No one's going to be able to catch up to that. Like it's almost physically impossible.
There's so much content within that game.
I just feel like eventually some game has to take that mantle away. Just like before WoW, like Sony, when WoW came out, Sony was like releasing EverQuest 2 and they were like, all right, we got this in the bag. We figured out this whole subscription model. It's going to be great. And then WoW was like, no.
When was WoW released?
2004
or 5.
I think EverQuest 2 and WoW came out pretty much at the same time. I think EverQuest 2 might have been just before WoW.
And when did EverQuest come out?
EverQuest came out in 2001.
Here's your Game Brew.
That's my guess.
Fact. Here's your Game Brew fact.
Yes.
November 23rd, 2004 is when WoW launched.
Yeah.
EverQuest 2.
My God, and it's still going strong.
November 9th, 2004.
13 years
when
later.
Did EverQuest
1.
In 1999.
1999.
So,
I remember going to a Wizards of the Coast store and seeing people play EverQuest.
That's hilarious.
So we're talking about from 1999 to 2004, EverQuest was king for 5 years. Mm-hmm. Then WoW came out, and it's been 13 years. as WoW being the penultimate MMORPG on the market.
The ultimate. Do you really think ultimate, not the penultimate. Penultimate would be second best.
That's the second to last. Sorry. That's like, it's been the game. Like, it's the MMORPG. Yeah. Like, do you really think there's something that's going to come out and be better than this 13-year-old game?
It'll be a new genre or a new thing.
Yeah. Will's probably right.
I think there's a reason that we haven't seen a World of Warcraft 2. It's because they're just
no one can do it better than they
building into what they already have. There's no sense in making a new
keep
game.
Adding on. Right.
Or like maybe it's going to be VR, MMO VR, the first great massively multiplayer online VR game that everybody gets.
Some Ready Player One
Oh my
stuff.
God. Can you imagine The Matrix, but WoW? Or anything.
They already had that MMO and it wasn't good.
They did an MMO with The Matrix Online. They did.
It was bad.
I mean, literally, plug your head in.
Do you know there's a guy that is still keeping a server alive for The Matrix Online?
Oh, wow.
That's a fact.
More power to him.
He must be
more power to him.
Yeah, good.
He's
good
a champion,
man.
apparently.
Strong morals.
Good on you.
Champion.
All right, Game Brew listeners, what do you think about the MMO genre? Is it dying or has it just changed? Hit us up, let us know, send us an email, or hit us up on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at The Game Brew. Right now, we're going to go to the Would You Rathers.
Oh my God.
Would you rather do some stuff?
All right, Dan.
Yes.
Would you rather travel exclusively by Mario-style Kart or by Ark-style dinosaurs?
Oh, I'd go with Ark-style dinosaurs. Imagine how intimidating that would be, sitting in traffic, just on your Tyrannosaurus, listening to podcasts.
I thought you were going to say that, but let me try and reframe this for you.
Okay.
Everybody loves Mario Kart. So is it better to be feared or to be loved, Dan?
It's better to be feared, obviously. Why would you even ask that question? Okay. Remember, I'm the dark side.
Well, fair enough.
I'm the one
go
who
with the giant
the dark
Tyrannosaurus
side.
Rex with laser beams. That's fine.
I will. That sounds awesome. Thank you.
More like Tyrannosaurus Rex. Am I right, Dan?
All right. This one is for Chris because he's beaten Ocarina of Time. Chris. Oh. Chris,
that's a burn at will, everyone.
Would you rather have Navi as a constant companion or have literal sausages for fingers?
That sounds delicious and horrifying.
Can I freeze them to have a little more tactile?
I mean, yeah, I guess if you wanted
ability,
to freeze your fingers.
I mean, my fingers are almost really close to sausages
it would just
already.
Be your fingers. Yeah, but it would just be your fingers, though, not
you
the,
wouldn't have any knuckles, though. So
sausage
you just have
fingers. I'm thinking about it.
How would you play video games?
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to play games.
I wouldn't be able to play games.
But if you're playing games, Navi would be like,
unless I just I could play those bongo games. Like
you could use like the bongo
that one
controller.
Bongo game that they had for
Wii.
Was it Wii or Wii U?
That
one.
That game was awesome. Out of that one. That game was fucking.
I could play
great.
the shit out of that game.
But imagine,
hey, listen.
You're like, where do I turn left or right here on this road?
Hey, listen.
I mean, would she only respond if I had questions, or would she just always like?
No, she just whenever
she would be Navi. So like anytime you came across something new, she'd like pop up and be like, "Hey, listen," and then she'd take 20 minutes explaining something that was obvious.
But would she also tell me things that I didn't know?
Does Navi ever do that in Ocarina of Time?
Sometimes.
Does she?
Sometimes.
But she could help me target my enemies, so that's good.
Okay, that's true.
I think I'm going to go with Navi. Okay. I think I'm going to go with Navi as much as I hit her.
Just imagine that you'd be like sitting in your office and you just like turn around and she's like in yellow over some guy.
And I would nail him with a headshot with a Nerf gun. It'd be great.
It's awesome. Good times. All right. This one is for Will. Will, would you rather be Frostmourne?
Hungers.
Yeah.
Frostmourne hungers.
Or Mjolnir.
Oh, Mjolnir.
Oh, wait, why?
Yeah.
Mjolnir?
It's a big ass hammer who could just wreck shit.
It's a big ass sword.
Yeah, but nobody can touch me except for Thor if I'm Mjolnir. I'll always be with my own.
You haven't watched the new movie.
I'll always be with my rightful owner.
You should watch the new movie before you answer this question.
Stop giving away stuff, Chris. Man. Jeez.
Whatever. That's like the thing that Thor does all the time. It's like no one can lift this except for Thor, and then everyone is like, yeah, kind of.
But it's a hammer. Like I could,
but also you can control lightning and you can fly.
Yeah, but Frostmourne hungers.
Yeah, but okay. Picture a building. Now hit that building with a sword. Visualize that. Okay. Now visualize hitting that building with Thor's hammer. That's why I picture.
Who do you think would win in a fight, Arthas or Thor?
Thor.
God, that's actually a tough question.
Thor.
Yeah, but
lightning.
But to be fair, hammer. If you want to fight Arthas on Ice Crown Citadel, you need at least 2 people, and Thor
counts as like 6 people.
He's got friends. He's got the whole crowd.
It's just him and his hammer. No, he would just get lifted off by those Valkyries and just dropped off the edge, and he'd die. That's how that raid goes.
That Thor, that weird.
First, he wouldn't be able to be picked up or moved by any force because of the hammer.
You can pick up Thor as long as he's holding his hammer.
But wouldn't he just fly away after you dropped him?
It's Thor.
Yeah. He's Thor. I'm going for Thor. The hammer can fly.
Okay. Strong choice, Mjolnir.
All right.
Mjolnir.
All right.
I mean, you can't. There were no wrong choices. Anyway, so.
My thought was that, like Frostmourne, you could recruit an army and then be awesome.
Of the undead.
Yes. It's kind of a small...
It'd be kind of melty.
Yeah.
It'd kind of ruin your yard.
And global warming, probably put a damper around in there.
They probably like global warming, though, because...
No, it's good.
The undead, I'm sure they love global warming.
No, they like it when it's cold.
Yeah, but not the frozen
They like more people dead.
Anyway.
Ian, I have your... would you rather?
Hit me, Dan.
All right, go. I'm not into that.
Your best shot.
80s music.
Away.
So going back to our first segment.
Mm-hmm.
So this would equate any game you played, even if it didn't have a difficulty setting. You have to imagine playing it at that setting. So would you rather play every single video game you play in the future on the easiest difficulty, or every video game you play in the future on the hardest difficulty?
I'm going to go hardest difficulty.
Yeah?
Okay. So you would play Doom. You've played Doom, right?
Yes, I have, yeah.
So you would play that on the hardest difficulty.
I mean, it would be better than the easiest difficulty.
Would it?
I think so. Like, if you think about Doom at the hardest difficulty, it's still really hard. But it's absolutely accomplishable if you have your shit together.
Every game's accomplishable.
Think about Destiny 2. Every enemy is the hardest that they will be in the entire game.
Yeah, that would not be fun.
That's tough.
Think about Super Mario Odyssey.
Okay, Super
every enemy is as hard as they will be.
Super Mario Odyssey would be exactly the same.
You're probably right.
But the easiest difficulty, nothing would ever be satisfying.
But you'd enjoy stories.
You could enjoy stories. Does hardest difficulty mean like impossible, or just mean like possible but hard?
The hardest difficulty. Not impossible.
The Witcher 3 Death March.
Yeah. Or, when you play Duke Nukem, it's it's like the one that's like the holy crap and crap,
Yeah. I think I'd rather do that than easy. Easy just seems like boring. Easy just seems boring.
Easy doesn't mean boring.
Easy
means you're just choosing to have a story.
You want to have a fun time.
But you want to have a relaxing time.
If I want to have a fun time, and then I will go like pet my cat or something.
But then I want to blow my brains out is what Ian's saying.
You feel like a god all the time.
Godlike.
Yeah, can you imagine how finely tuned my reflexes would be?
Oh, God.
Like a sea cucumbers.
ready to squirt away at the slightest danger. Oh, all right, everyone. That's it for us this week. Thank you so much for listening to the Game Brew podcast. If you have a question or you want to talk to us, please hit us up at thegamebrew@gmail.com or send us a message on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Say goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody.
See you.
He did the weird voice
next week.
The next week.
Yes. All right, I'm calling that a wrap. All right, Game Blue listeners.
Game Blue listeners.
There was a blue man. He had a blue wife.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, he lived in a blue house.
Yeah.
And everything he had was blue. And it was blue. I was blue. If I was green, I would die. If I was green, I would die. If I was green, I would die.
Okay, everybody.